Hey everyone, my name is Isaac, host of the Unrealized Purpose podcast. We have Dalton here with us, co-host, and a guest with us, Matt Jodouin. And I hope, did I say your last name right?
It was
Jodouin.
close. It's a tough one. I'll give you that. It's a Jodouin, but don't worry, nobody ever gets that right the first time.
Okay. This is his second time on the podcast, and we got some really cool things to talk about this new year, setting goals, building habits, and a little bit of his journey into sobriety. So if you
Well,
want
thanks
to
for having
introduce
me,
yourself.
Isaac. Nice to meet you, Dalton.
Howdy, Matt. Good to meet you as well. Good to be here this morning. Well, morning for you, evening, afternoon for me. So
Yeah, right on. I'm looking forward to it.
One of the first things that Matt brought up, and he posted on his Instagram, was the fact he's been sober for 1,000 days, correct?
Correct. Yeah, just over that now. So kind of a
How
cool
does it
little
feel?
milestone.
that's awesome.
How does it feel?
It feels incredible, to be honest with you. And like going back 3 years ago, I probably never would have imagined that that was possible. I wouldn't have even dreamed that that was a thing. There was a time in my life where, being 10 days sober without drugs or alcohol was kind of unheard of. And to be here now with 1,000 days of sobriety was, like I said, a cool little milestone.
What made you decide to stop drinking?
Well, there was a multitude of factors, but I have a pretty lengthy history with both drugs and alcohol. And looking back, I probably didn't go more than a few weeks without consuming some substance since about the time I was 14 or 15 years old. And it was just always kind of a constant in my life. And I was what you might call like kind of high functioning. And what I mean by that is like it never really interfered too much with my school. I wasn't missing work. I wasn't getting in fights or DUIs or in too much trouble like that. But I mean, there were always kind of consequences to consuming substances like that, whether it's drugs or alcohol. And eventually, I got to the point where I realized that I was just using substances for all sorts of reasons. I mean, it seems to be such a common thing these days to drink or to smoke weed or to do drugs recreationally. I was using it to celebrate and have fun. But I was also using it to kind of like deal with stress and overcome setbacks and when I was bored. And so if we're sitting around the fire and having a camp out or barbecuing or watching hockey on Sunday or anything like that, football, there's just always a reason to drink. And I just found that it was so constant that it was starting to become kind of all consuming. And I never thought I had a problem with it. It was always one of those things that, I can quit anytime. And, I thought that until I tried and then I couldn't. And I just kind of kept coming back to it and kept coming back to it. And eventually, like I said, I was using it to deal with problems. But after a while, it started to create more problems than it was solving. And that's when I knew that I had to do something about it.
Quick question: like, what was your first step in realizing that? I guess just kind of the mental process of I need somebody there. What was your thought in that?
Like I said, I had tried several times to kind of like cut back or to go without. And addiction is a bit of a funny thing. And one of the craziest things that it does is it convinces you that you don't have a problem. And, I'd go like 3 or 4 days without having a drink. And by the time we get to Friday night, it's like, well, look, I went all week without a drink. Let's pop some tops. Let's celebrate, kind of thing. See, I just proved it to myself. And it just created this kind of perpetual cycle. And, if I did go a period of time without alcohol, when I did return to alcohol again, I usually end up right back where I started with the level of consumption. And where I'm from, drinking is like a sport, and the name of the game is consumption. And it's not about like the flavor, it's not about the taste, it's not about enjoying it. It's about how much can you drink, and how drunk can we get. And that was kind of like the environment that I grew up in, and that was kind of my mentality for a lot of years. And so I realized that when I tried to give it up and I couldn't, I thought, well, maybe I actually need some help with this. And I was really fortunate enough that I had some good friends of mine that had been in AEA for quite some time and had done some 12-step programs. And I was curious about it. I'd asked them lots of questions, and they were super, just open and receptive to the questions. And we'd sit and have conversations, but I never felt judged. I never felt pressured. I never felt like it was something that I had to do, but I just kept coming back to them and was super intrigued by sobriety. And eventually a couple of them had invited me to come along. And I went to a meeting initially, and felt like I didn't quite belong. And it took me a little while to kind of get over my ego and to accept that, hey, you know what, actually, this is probably something that I do need a little bit of support with, that I don't have to try to figure this out on my own. And so I did a 12-step program. And to be honest with you, like, we talk personal development, and like 12-step programs are like one of the best personal development tools of all time, like hands down. It just really gets to the core of what drives your behavior and what's motivating you to consume. And that for me was the ticket.
So would you recommend that, like, if people do have a problem with drinking, that's where they start? Is that a 12-step program?
I think that everybody's approach might be a little bit different, and all I can do is speak for myself when it comes to that. But I think that it was hugely helpful for me, even just to have a room full of people who kind of understood where I was at, what I was going through, somebody that I could relate to. And addiction affects all sorts of people with all different kinds of backgrounds. And I had this preconceived notion about what AA was like and the people that go to AA. And, thanks to Hollywood, I think in part, but it's, this picture in my mind of like this, like, dark and gloomy basement with a bunch of like down and depressed losers all sitting there, like crying into their coffee. And the first meeting that I ever went to, it couldn't have been further from the truth. I walked into this room and everybody's smiling and they're laughing and, they're having a good time. And I was the one that was down and depressed. I was the one that was like hurting. And I thought, well, maybe these guys know something that I don't. And I met a whole bunch of people who were, business people, who were professionals, who, well-dressed, articulate. And I thought, this isn't at all what I expected, but I was really glad that I went.
It seems like Hollywood has a good way of portraying what they want.
Isn't that the truth, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, alcohol is such a social norm. It's crazy. It's everywhere. Everyone's doing it, it seems like.
Oh, yeah. And I didn't even really realize, or maybe most people wouldn't, until you start to remove it from your life, how prevalent it is on TV and in the movies and in programs. I mean, everybody is drinking. The first couple of months, it was like everywhere I looked, you're seeing advertisements for it and promotions, and seeing every movie and TV and music video and things like that. So it's all over.
Yeah. So how long is that program, by the way?
Well, it's perpetual. And so the idea is that, you work through it. There is no necessary like timeline per se. Some people, it takes longer. Some people are a little bit more focused and committed and might be able to get through it a little bit quicker. But some people take quite a while to work through it. And then once you finish, you start right back at the start and work through it again.
Okay. So you're still working through it then?
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing. and I think that it's something that, just like anything, you can refine and revisit and continue to, it's more of like a practice, really.
Okay.
Through personal experience, like that seems to be what helps the most, is having a friend, having somebody there to rely on, and having somebody you're accountable to. So I love your story. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I guess we can kind of dive into the topic here a little bit. Topic of the call: goals, habits, and perfect time to do so. January 2nd. Everyone's writing out, probably filling out goal cards and stuff. And that's kind of one of the main things you do, is help people stay accountable, work through goals, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I find that even before that, a lot of times most people don't even have a goal. Most people have kind of like, a vague idea of something that they like, or maybe even they just realize that what they don't want, and they're spinning their tires and they're unhappy with kind of where they're at and what they're doing, and just kind of unsatisfied and unfulfilled. And so the first steps, even just kind of like identifying a goal, and that's a challenge in and of itself. I mean, I think it was Mark Twain who said that I can help anybody achieve anything that they want. The only problem is I can't find anybody who knows what they want. And I think that, he said that back in the 1800s, and, fast forward to today. And I think that a lot of that is still true today.
Man, it was like something Jordan Peterson said, and it keeps playing in my mind. It's like, it's gone viral on Instagram, TikTok, everywhere, but it's like, if you don't know what you want, like, sit on your bed and really think hard about what you want and what you need to get rid of, and you're not going to like the answer. But
Right.
anyway, it's just something that's been playing in my mind for a little bit.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's the power of asking yourself questions. And I think that that's an extremely powerful habit to develop, is the power of asking yourself questions. The problem is that I think that, so oftentimes distraction is like at our fingertips. And for somebody to actually sit still, alone with themselves and their thoughts, is a super challenging thing to do. And we're so quick to turn on the TV or to check our phone or to fill that void, that we never really give ourselves an opportunity to listen to ourselves, or to ask ourselves questions like that. I think it was Blaise Pascal who said that all of man's problems stem from the fact that he's unable or unwilling to sit alone, quietly, in a room with his thoughts. And I think, man, how true is that today?
Yeah.
But yeah, if like Jordan Peterson said, I totally agree. If you sit on the edge of your bed and you ask yourself an honest question and you're sincere about it, an answer will come to you. And like he said, you probably won't like the response that you get, but it's usually a pretty good indication of what direction you could be going or should be going.
Yeah. I think that's something to really think about in the next year, is where, like, do you have any free time to just think? Like, something I've been working on the past few months, where it's like, if there's any downtime, I'd find myself just playing some music or even checking my phone. And I found that you don't think very much, and it's almost like a state of 24/7, like just a dopamine hit all the time, and it just makes you depressed. And you definitely don't know what direction you need to go whenever you're sucked into social media and just watching shows on Netflix all the time or whatever.
Oh, 100%. You're absolutely right, though. And I forget who said this. I think it was a man by the name of McFarlane, but he said that really most people don't think. We equate mental activity for independent thought. And the truth is, it's not the same thing. He says that only about 2% of people really think, 3% of people think they think, and 95% of people would rather die than think. And I just think that that's so true today, where, like you said, to just have on some music, maybe a journal or a book, and just to give yourself the freedom or the time and space to actually ponder or work through problems or ask yourself questions is very rare. I think one of the most powerful things that you can do, though. And I've been big on kind of a bit of a phrase lately, and the phrase is to slow down to speed up. And I think that one of the challenges that a lot of people face these days is they just they're in this rhythm or in this habit or in this pattern of just putting their head down and grinding on. It's a big thing in our culture right now, this, hustle and grind, and, rise and grind and all this sort of thing. People think that it's all about working hard. And too oftentimes I think that not enough people are taking the time to really like sit down and ask themselves like, well, I'm working hard, sure, but am I getting the results that I want? Or is there a better way to go about this? Or do I even like the direction that I'm headed? Maybe I need to shift my focus and shift some efforts a little bit.
Yeah.
No, I love that slow down to speed up. I just had a tweet. I don't know if you saw it, Isaac. But it's now I forget how it goes. But basically the idea is a lot of us like read. I don't know if you guys read a lot. I'm sure you do. But I noticed in the group that I'm in, a lot of people around me, they'll read or they'll speed read through it. Like, oh, I'm going to read through all these books this year, and they'll get to the end. I'm like, all right, what'd you learn? What'd you get out of it, really? And I think it goes right back to that slow down to speed up. It's like, hey, are you studying? Are you understanding? Are you taking the time to be able to sit there and ponder what was just said? And I think of these people that say they can, and I don't know, maybe they can, but read through a book in like a day. And I'm like, man, that seems awfully difficult that you'd read through a book in a day and gather all the information, or, at least even 50% of the information that was in that book. So I love that thought, slow down to speed up, so that you can get your goal. But anyways, Isaac, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was just going back to the whole hustle culture thing. Like when I first started out, it was like 8 to 12 hours of, I would just be doing busy work. And until I realized that like, it was just like all the noise, and you're just always just focusing on, you got to get this work done, got to make these graphics, got to do this, got to reach out here, got to do this call. And then there's like no time to sit and think. And in the last few months, it's kind of been a journey for me, but it's like having a certain times to have focus work was really important. That way you can have time to actually think, because I think the hustle culture definitely has it backwards. You can get more done in like 2 to 4 hours than you could in 8 to 10 of just being busy. And I know you, Dalton, you're with your job, you probably could get your whole job done in a couple hours, whereas they just want you to be busy for 10 or 8. But yeah, it's definitely something to be mindful of, and especially with all the media and every single chance to have that entertainment, it's something we always have to be conscious of. It's like, am I rather than being on autopilot, it's like, am I on autopilot today and just listening to this, or just, I don't know, just being more intentional, I guess, is probably where I'm going with it.
Yeah, 100%. To your point there, Dalton, I think that people just cruising through books, you get a little bit of a dopamine hit when you finish a book, don't you? That sense of accomplishment, that sense of satisfaction of finishing that. And I think that some people are, kind of chasing that too. And they, not that they trick themselves, but they convince themselves that, by finishing a book, that they're somehow bettering themselves. And maybe to a certain extent they are. I mean, I'm a huge advocate for reading, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to discourage anybody from reading, but a mentor of mine once told me something that was very powerful, and that was that some books you read and others you study. And I think about Bob Proctor, who unfortunately passed away last year, but Bob Proctor reread Think and Grow Rich for 63 years, he read the same book over and over and over and over again. And that to me just speaks to the power of repetition. And it's one thing to read a book, it's an entirely different thing to understand it, to internalize it, and then to turn around and apply it. And that's where the real power is. That's where the real power comes from, is in the application of new information. When I went to university, I had a professor that told me that knowledge is power. And I thought that was so cool at the time. I used to want to put that on a t-shirt, knowledge is power, And, I realized that actually knowledge is only potential power, and that it's only powerful when it's applied. And so my advice oftentimes is to read less books, but reread the great ones over and over and over again. And, I used to fall into that camp too of, priding myself on how many books I could cruise through in a year. Now I don't take as much pride in that, and I try to revisit the good ones over and over and over again. And different things jump out at you at different times and at different phases of your life, and you'll understand things to a deeper level when you revisit them and repeat them.
I was reading through another book, actually. I think I suggested the book to you, Isaac. And honestly, the last 5 tweets I've made were out of the first 3 chapters of that book. I was like, man, how did I miss this before? And man, I think we nailed it there with it. There's reading, and then there's studying, and then there's understanding. And you study to understand. You can read and understand it. That's the basicness of the book. But if you study it and you have that understanding from the study, yeah, you definitely, and then applying it, like you said, you can understand it and then not apply it. It doesn't work out for you.
Right. Yeah. I'm curious, what was the book that you were reading?
Oh, it's probably a book you've never heard of. It's Things That Are Different Are Not the Same. It's a book about books.
Cool.
So you can find it on Amazon. But yeah, just some of the one-liners that the guy uses in it are very they're very, very thought out, I guess you could say. The book is on a very controversial topic, but I'll leave it there. So we don't want to get into that today. So
sounds interesting, though.
Yeah, now he's gonna go read it.
Yeah, that's right.
Now he's gonna go read it. There you go.
Yeah, I found your tweet. Stop reading, start understanding, start studying, start identifying an in-depth definition of the words being used. That's really good.
Yeah,
it's
and that was the other thing, Isaac, was a lot of times I would read, and I'm a Christian, so I read the Bible too. And I read out of the KJV and some of it's older English, but it's understanding some of the words that you're reading. We grow up a lot of times, and I know this, our parents will tell us a word and they'll give us the meaning of that word, but then we'll go out into the real world and we'll find out that that word does not hold the same definition. And so just understanding what you're reading, and Jordan Peterson, you'll see him do this all the time. Somebody will ask him a question and he'll point right back and he'll ask him, hey, what's your definition of that word? It's because we all kind of, just the English language and the way it's progressed, we don't quite understand. We talk past each other, I think, a lot. I'm sorry I cut you off there, Isaac. What were you saying?
No, you're good. Yeah, even even in the U.S. government, they redefined and locked the word. What is it? It's not depression, but it's whenever your country is going into an economic state of downfall or recession.
Recession.
I think recession is the word they redefined and locked in on Wikipedia. It's you gotta go back and detail a little bit there. You can't just redefine stuff like that. But
You're right,
just
though,
getting
Dalton,
along.
about rereading or reading a dictionary or having one handy while you're reading, especially texts that are a little bit older and that sort of thing. Because too often times I've fallen into the trap of kind of reading something, and I just had a tendency to sometimes to skip over words that I didn't understand or wasn't familiar with, or to make the assumption that I understood what they were talking about when really I maybe didn't have as clear of a definition of what that word meant. And so I'm missing half of the context. And so being able to go back and look up certain words has been hugely helpful.
Yeah. And I got this for Christmas, but I got a Kindle here. It's amazing. Just define each word. You gotta stop and think about it. And yeah, I like where you guys are going with this.
Yeah.
It's like working out almost. You go to the gym and you can do all your workouts real quick, but you're not gonna say, hey, I worked out today. It's like, but did you actually take it slowly? Did you actually like work through each of the workouts rather than just do your reps real quick, do your use super light weights and call it a day.
Check the box.
Check the boxes. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe to bring it back to goals here a little bit. What's your process for setting goals and breaking them down into actionable habits? Because that's the only way we're gonna actually achieve our goals.
Yeah. So my process for setting goals is really quite simple and also pretty challenging for a lot of people. And I find that trying to allow people to unlock their mind and open their mind and their imagination to things that are possible for them. I think so oftentimes people kind of create self-imposed limitations. People create, limits on their own, either capabilities that stem from either lack of confidence or lack of self-worth or lack of a sense of deserving what they want. And so I have a little tool that I use called a mind map. And a mind map is just like, I use it as like kind of, I present it as an opportunity to just do some brainstorming. And like, if you could have and do anything that you wanted, and we just pretended that this pen was like a little magic wand, and we could just have or do anything that you wanted without exception, what would that look like? Or what would that be like? And when you present something like that, it kind of gives people an opportunity to just create like a wish list, or just like, just dream. And it kind of takes off those handcuffs a little bit that, keep people playing small or continuing to do what they're doing, and allows people just kind of dream. And sometimes it's things that people have been thinking about for a long time, but never had the courage to really either like verbalize or write down. And once they do that, that's a real powerful step.
My first thought was like, oh, beautiful house in Texas, with clay shingle. I started thinking about, some things that I want. And then I got to a more deeper level of what people really want. And that's, we want to make a difference. We want to make a change in people's lives. And then my mind went back over to that, of, regardless whether I have that or not, you can have all the items in the world that you want. But when we're gone from here, the biggest thing is that we made a change in people. And so that was my thought on that.
Well, and that's an interesting point you bring up too, Dalton, because I find that oftentimes the things that people want are oftentimes either monetary or material type things, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that I think that there's a place for that. But if your happiness is dependent upon getting more or achieving more or having more, you're going to live a pretty hollow and shallow existence. And it's you might achieve a lot, but without a deeper meaning, like you're saying, it's not going to be very rewarding in the long term. And I found personally that some of the biggest and most powerful things that you can do, and something I think that exists within all of us, is a desire to be of service to others. And paradoxically, the more you help others get what they want, the more that you're likely to succeed as well. And so, but too oftentimes people are too focused on the effect of that, and rather than focusing on the cause, which is the service part, or the service to others.
Yeah.
It's definitely paradoxical.
Oh man, life's so full of paradoxes like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's something I've been learning too, where it's like I keep coming back to fitness because it's something that's like kind of been more of a focus lately for me, is like like to feel better, like happiness and the good feelings don't come from comfort to a degree. They come from discomfort and putting in the work. And something that you said, Matt, where it's like you go and you help people. It requires work. One, it's probably not going to be comfortable, but then you're going to feel happy and fulfilled on a level that you're not going to feel happy and fulfilled by sitting and watching Netflix and or playing video games. Like it's a different sort of happiness, but it's something that is lost, I think.
That's right. And I think that, to me, that speaks to the difference between pleasure and joy. And pleasure is pretty like cheap, and it's super easy to come by, and it's shallow and superficial. It's also pretty short-lived. You can achieve pleasure with like I said, like the touch of a finger, it's pretty easy to come by. But joy and fulfillment requires a little bit more effort, but man, it's a lot more fulfilling, and the rewards last a lot longer.
Yeah. When it comes to setting goals though, I mean, I know you have your mind map. Do you recommend people focus on any other topics besides something that maybe they want? Like, is there a direction that, hey, maybe to implement that good dopamine, that joy rather than pleasure, is there something you encourage people to do besides, hey, I want a house or a car, new car?
Yeah, totally. A question that one of my mentors asked me was a very powerful one. And it's, once you've identified some things that you want, maybe it's a house, or maybe it's a car, or maybe it's a business, or certain dollar figure in your bank account. He asked me a question, well, who's the man that's accomplishing that right now? And what that did was completely shifted the conversation for me, and completely changed my perspective. And, you may have heard, I think it's Tony Robbins that says that, achieving the goal isn't nearly as important as who you become in the process. And I used to think that was a bunch of hogwash. I thought that was BS. Well, I just want the thing, and I think that that's so oftentimes pretty prevalent, where it's like people they just want to have. But there's that old saying, like, be, do, have. And you've got to become the person, and you've got to do the things way before you can ever have what that person has. And so when my mentor asked me, well, who's the man that's achieving what you want right now? I realized that, well, this journey isn't about getting, this journey is about growing. And when I focus my efforts on how can I grow and who do I want to be, well, that was a game changer, and completely changed, like I said, the conversation and my perspective. And I think that oftentimes taking that approach, where it's like, okay, well, who do I really want to be? And how do I want to show up for myself, for my family, for my coworkers, or for the world, is a much more empowering position to take. And like, kind of lends itself to our last conversation there, which was, much more fulfilling.
Yeah. The whole fake it till you make it is kind of true there. Visualize who you want to be.
Right.
Pretend to be that person.
Yeah. start acting like that person, start dressing like that person, start waking up the same time that person does, start really get to know that individual and start to, try to embody them. And, you do that often enough and frequently enough for long enough. And eventually it's not an act anymore. That's just who you are. I think back to, it wasn't all that long ago, maybe 10 or 12 years ago that, to imagine myself as a coach and a leader and as a role model or a mentor to anybody would have been absurd. My habits were terrible. I was drinking and doing drugs. I was eating like crap. I was never working out. I was smoking, slowly but surely, when you start to change your behavior, you start to change your how you see yourself and your identity. And people say that people don't change. Well, people can change.
Love that. Yeah. Something I've been thinking about lately, and it just aligns with the goals and the habits, is thinking in days and in moments, and not punishing yourself for messing up. As far as like, because if you're going to build a habit, you're going to mess up some days. Maybe you won't accomplish it or achieve it, and don't punish yourself for it, and just tomorrow's a new day. Is there anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, a number of different cliches come to mind where, focus on progress, not perfection, and things of that nature. And I think that that's true. It's about more of a pattern of behavior rather than the need to be perfect all the time. I think that oftentimes a real skill that I tried to develop was the ability to oscillate between being focused and having like, specific, like kind of daily intentions. And then also being able to span out to the 30,000-foot view and look at big picture and be able to see progress as, something that sometimes takes a little bit longer than you like. But in the big picture, if you're moving in the right direction in general, it's usually a good thing.
Yeah. I can see you thinking over there, Dalton.
I am thinking. A particular word came to mind, was the word diligent, and you basically gave the definition for it there. And I actually looked this word up for this particular podcast because I thought the word would come up. But I love the first 5 words of this definition: is study and application to business. And I really think that word study is really summing up everything. Constant in effort or exertion to accomplish what is undertaken, assiduous, attentive, industrious, not idle or negligent. But I really think just that word study, just keep going at it. Constant.
Yeah, persistence.
Yeah, persistence.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about goals here, and one of the biggest things that some of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is a couple of things. One is they usually try to change everything all at once. It's like they want to get into better shape, so they're going to start going to the gym, they're going to start exercising, they're going to change their nutrition, they're going to cut out sugar, they're going to cut back on drinking. It's everything. They're going to completely change the whole works. The other thing that I see people do is they try to take on too much too soon. And that's kind of to your point there, Dalton, where, it's like they haven't worked out in years, but now they're going to commit to going to the gym like 5 days a week, and then the other thing, the other mistake that I see people make is that they try to do it on their own, where, they'll go at it on their own and think that they can, figure this out kind of thing independently. And what I would suggest is obviously kind of the opposite to all of that, is to pick 1 or 2 things max that you want to improve upon and start like ridiculously small. Start with, like James Clear in his book Atomic Habits has a line that says that you can't perfect a habit until you've established the habit. And so he's got what he calls the 2-minute rule. And so just, starting with something, a new habit with as simple as something like 2 minutes, make it like set the bar super low that you like can't fail. And then to your point there, Dalton, just be steady and consistent and persist with that. And then as that develops and you start to establish and ingrain that habit, well, then you can build on it, I think is very helpful when it comes to habits and routines and goals and working your way towards that steadily and consistently. And then also finding an environment of people that support your goals. And that almost lends itself back to, this concept of identity. And, one of the most powerful forces is our environment. And it's our ability to see ourselves as part of a group. And if there's a goal or something that you'd like to accomplish or achieve, if you can find a group of people where that activity is the norm, and you can join that group or join that membership or team or whatever it might be, now that's already an established habit. You'll start to kind of get swept up in being a member of the group rather than the activity itself. And that will support your actions and support your habits in the process.
100%. If you're gonna be chasing down one particular goal, get that accountability. That was a big thing for me too, whenever building out habits or going after something, is having that accountability. And that's something that you offer in your coaching. So like in the mindset, goal achieving space, literally what we're talking about, having that accountability from what is gonna, man, it's like 100% more beneficial and increased likelihood of you actually achieving that goal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I heard a statistic. I don't know if this is true, but I'm gonna say that it is in my experience, that you're 800% more likely to follow through on a task when you're accountable to another human being. And I just think that we're so often, it's too easy to let ourselves off the hook, isn't it?
It is.
To make excuses or make allowances. And once you do that one time, it makes it that much easier to do it the next time. And growing up, I was far too susceptible to peer pressure, and I caved really easily. And knowing that about myself, though, knowing that, I mean, it's to a certain extent, that's a human condition. We're susceptible to peer pressure. And if we can flip that and use that to our advantage, where now the peer pressure is to participate in habits, activities that support our growth or are positive or empowering, that accountability really comes into play and can really support us there. There's actually a direct line between accountability and success. Growing up, I always thought that I wanted freedom, that I wanted the freedom to do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, with whoever I wanted. And, people talk about freedom like that's a good thing. And I mean, to an extent it is, but the truth is, like, left to my own devices, if I've got too much freedom, if I've got too much time and not enough accountability, I just get myself in trouble, and I need to structure and routine and accountability to others in order to thrive. And when I have that structure, when I have that routine, and when I have that accountability, that's actually when I'm at my best. That's another one of those paradoxes of life, almost.
Yeah, it goes back to hustle culture a little bit, but
Right.
I like that statistic. I agree with that. I mean, 100%. The 800% more likely to follow through.
Yeah, I like that. I actually read that I think on your page, because Isaac sent me your page, and I was like, okay, and that was one of the things I looked at, was 800% more likely. And I was going to ask you the question, like, why do you think that is? But I think you already answered it, is, having somebody there to be accountable to and responsible with. Another thought was, you said set a low goal. kind of set something that you know you're going to complete with. And what do you think are like the if somebody sets a bigger goal, something that they're really trying to reach for, what's the bad effects of setting too high of a goal that you don't reach?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think that there's kind of like a Goldilocks zone, and I think that there's power in setting big, audacious goals and dreaming big, and having people in your corner or in your circle who kind of open up your mind and allow you to envision something that's way greater and way bigger than something that you maybe ever imagined for yourself. Okay, I think that there's power in doing that. I think that sometimes, if, like I said, your happiness is dependent upon achieving that goal, it can be discouraging. If you're not making progress on it, it can be disheartening, and some people are likely to give up in the face of that. But I think too that, if you set a goal that doesn't require any growth, if you set a goal that's something that you already know how to do, it's just checking boxes, those kinds of goals aren't very rewarding. And they ultimately don't serve the purpose of a goal, which is to grow. And so there's kind of like a Goldilocks zone there for goal setting. But I think that being able to identify the goal and then break it down into smaller steps and have those steps be so small that you can't miss, I think is a very powerful kind of formula for that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I like that. Small steps, big goal. I gotcha.
Yeah. That's a great summation there. Big goals, small steps. I like that.
Small steps.
Yeah. Is there a specific timeline that you recommend for breaking these down? I know like 30 days to build a habit. It's like 60 days to make it part of your life or something like that.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of John Assaraf, and John Assaraf is a neuroscientist from Montreal, Canada, and he's got all kinds of statistics that back this up. But apparently, I think it's somewhere between that 90 to 120 days to kind of recreate a neural pathway in your mind or in your brain that supports a kind of a new habit. And again, I think it kind of comes with that repetition. And that repeated behavior. And I don't know, that's probably the best estimate or the best kind of guess that I have there as far as the latest research that says about how long that takes to establish a new habit. But, this kind of goes back to my, 12-step program is just, looking at it one day at a time and just trying to, just focus on what you can do today and not get too caught up in, the future, the week ahead or the month ahead or the year ahead. Just focus on what we can do today.
Because then it becomes a lifestyle rather than a goal. Right.
Yeah.
Do you have any goals you're setting this year, or you got a lifestyle going on?
I've got a lifestyle going on, but I had a feeling that question might come up. I've got some goals. A lot of mine are kind of more process-driven goals, as far as adding value, adding service, showing up for clients, doing monthly workshops and retreats for people, and just being of value to others. The law of cause and effect is in everything, and it's universal law number one. And like I said, too oftentimes people are so focused on the effect, they want the outcome, they want the result, and they're fixated on that. Well, if I focus my efforts on the cause, which is the value and the service that I provide, the effects take care of themselves. And so that's been my primary focus for the last little while, is just to show up as the best version of me and provide as much value to those in my circle as possible. And the rewards will take care of themselves.
I like that. Yeah, more process-driven goals.
as far as your question, Isaac, new goals, you've kind of actually influenced me to kind of, put off the people in your life that, just aren't making much of a change, aren't really, don't know what they want, I guess, is what we started off with at the beginning. And just kind of not letting them take up too much of my time, and not spending too much time on, individuals that don't know what they want.
Say it just kind of goes back to that 2% thing. 2% people are thinking, 3% think they think, right?
Yeah. And if you think about that widespread, you're not going to run into very many of them, if that's the true percentages of them. So you're going to come across a lot of people that just don't want to move, don't want to grow. They're kind of happy where they're at. So yeah, that's my New Year's resolution. And I guess I wouldn't call it a New Year's resolution. You started off with saying, like, that's, some people are against them. Some people, I'd say I'm probably one of those people that's like, screw New Year's resolutions. And the only reason I say that is because, like, if you're going to make a change, do it today. Make it a today resolution. Start today. Don't start at the new year. If you want to make a change, start right now. And so, but anyways, that's all I really had. So.
Well, I think that most people have negative preconceptions about New Year's resolutions, in part because they've had negative experiences with New Year's resolutions. They've set New Year's resolutions and never followed through on them. And eventually you get to the point where, sometimes people will say to me things like, well, their New Year's resolution is to not set any more New Year's resolutions. And, I think the statistic is about 80% of people forget about or, fail to follow through on their New Year's resolution by the third week in January. And only about 8% of people ever accomplish their New Year's resolutions. And I think in part that's because most people don't actually set a real resolution. I mean, a real resolution is to, like, make a firm, committed decision. Most people, their New Year's resolution is really more of like a want or a wish. It's something that just, it's kind of like flippant and they're not very committed. It's something that they like, but not something that they're real firm about. And I think the other reason why most people don't follow through on their commitments is because they focus too much on what they have to give up. If you listen to most people's New Year's resolutions, it's like, well, I need to lose weight, or I need to quit smoking, or I need to, cut back on my drinking or whatever, and the truth of the matter is like, you always know what you have to sacrifice. You always know what you have to give up, but you can't ever really fully understand what you have to gain by making that sacrifice, how good you could feel. And if you focus more of your energy on what you gain, the energy, the attitude, the lifestyle, those types of things, if you put your effort and your energy, your attention towards that, it's going to be much more rewarding, and your likelihood of success is going to be a lot higher, And then the other thing is that most people don't ever back up their New Year's resolutions with accountability or break it down into small steps to help them. I mean, there's that old adage that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, and most people just make a wish, but they don't have any idea how to make that come to fruition. It's just a want.
Yeah. It's like my New Year's resolution is to punish myself.
Right.
Taking out everything I enjoy. It's going to be a great year.
Yeah. How long is that going to last, eh?
Yeah. All of 3 weeks, right?
That's right. Yeah. If that,
yeah.
Yeah.
I like how you summarize that though. Without, like, they set goals, but then they don't have the accountability to follow through. Is there anywhere that you recommend people look though, to basically like hiring someone to, like a coach like yourself, especially if you're going into fitness, hire a coach? But do you recommend people look anywhere particular?
I think it depends on your goal, but I think that, one of the biggest things that I've learned is to find a mentor, find a coach, find somebody who has the know-how and the experience to help you achieve what you want to achieve or get where you want to go. And life's just too short to try to figure out everything on your own. And, you can learn from books, but, and like I said, I'm not trying to discourage anybody from reading, but in my experience, having a coach or having a mentor just fast tracks your growth. And you oftentimes have to search out things like that, and you have to be intentional with your circle. And so, if finding a coach or a mentor or even a mastermind group, a mastermind group is something that Napoleon Hill, who's the author of Think and Grow Rich, which is one of my favorite books, talks about. And I've been a part of a couple of different mastermind groups over the years, and it's got all of that built right into it, as far as people to hold you accountable, people to open your mind and your imagination, people to inspire you. And if somebody's in a mastermind group, chances are they're one of the 2% of people who have a goal, who have a purpose, who are passionate about what they're doing. And when you're surrounded with a group of people like that, it's very difficult not to get swept up in that kind of energy, and you'll go places that you never imagined.
Yeah. It's almost like, sure, it'll probably cost money to get into a mastermind like that, but if you look at it as an investment in yourself for the year, then I think hopefully it'll change that perspective a little bit. Right. I like the concept of a mastermind. That's actually a good place to look. Yeah.
Yeah. And oftentimes you have to kind of search that out, or in my experience, even create that yourself and take the initiative to organize a group of like-minded individuals who are motivated, who are driven to grow and to learn and use each other as motivation. And you're right. Sometimes it does require some sort of sacrifice, either monetarily, some investment and that kind of thing. I think it was John C. Maxwell said that most people are open to change as long as it doesn't cost too much or isn't too much of an inconvenience. And I just think that that's true. I mean, too often times people are just looking for growth on a silver platter, and it doesn't usually happen that way.
So as kind of a way to wrap up the episode, is there anything, or maybe just summarize all of this, like the key takeaways for people that are starting on this 2023 journey, the new year? Is there anything?
Yeah, just to kind of go back to your point there that we started with, I think there's real power in just kind of having some time and space, or creating time and space to be alone with your thoughts and ask yourself questions. And if you ask yourself simply, like, what is it that you really want to see for yourself? And you were courageous enough and open enough to, listen to what comes to you, you might surprise yourself. And I think that getting clear on what it is that you want is probably the first step. They say that, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it with amazing accuracy every single time. And the second part to that is, I would suggest writing it down with pen and paper. Writing is a sacred act, and what you write down has a tendency to become your reality. And I've seen this in my life, but also in the lives of clients, where just writing something down and you'll lose it in a pile of papers, and you come back to it months or years later and you realize, oh, wow, that came true. And there's real power in that. And so writing something down with pen and paper, and then, breaking it down into steps is helpful, but I think the even more important than that is finding an accountability partner or a group of people. The importance and the power of your environment cannot be overstated. It's one of the biggest causes or leading causes to your success. And so finding some people who are going to help hold you accountable and who will motivate you and inspire you and encourage you, even on those days where you don't want to do and you don't want to stick with it, is one of the most powerful things that you can do. And like I said, sometimes you either have to search that out, or create it if you want it. And I think those are probably some of the biggest things that I would suggest people start with.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to create it either.
Right.
Text that friend or text someone, hey, I need some help with this.
Yeah. And, you might be surprised at the response that you get, that other people are probably looking for something similar or open to the idea too, or inspired by your actions. And, that's a powerful place to be.
Awesome. I love that as a summary. That's perfect. So if anybody wants to reach out to you or connect with you, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Matt.Jodouin, and I'm also on Facebook. And I do free workshops monthly, and just an open invitation to anybody who wants to come and learn and participate. And it's just an opportunity to share some information and support others. And yeah, so on Facebook and Instagram is probably the best way to get in touch.
You just came out with a ebook, right? Is that new?
It's been a
Get Out of
work
the
in
Rut?
progress for a little while. Yeah, it's been kind of a culmination of lessons and experience and things that I've learned over the years. And what I've done is kind of created a process to help people identify what it is that they want to do, and help them with the break it down into steps in order to achieve it. And the ebook is called Unstuck: How to Get Out of a Rut and Start Crushing Life. And the reason it's titled that is because I find that oftentimes people feel like they're kind of stuck, or they're stuck in a pattern of thinking or a pattern of behavior, and stuck in a little bit of a rut. And this is kind of a simple and straightforward process to help create some traction and get moving again.
Where can people find this book? Is it published anywhere?
Yeah, it's online, and on my link in my bio on my Instagram, and it's soon to be out on Amazon, I believe. So stay tuned for that.
Awesome. I'll have to get it then. All right. Well, I think that's a good way to end the episode. Thanks for getting on, Matt and Dalton. I hope this is going to help a lot of people.